and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where we have to discuss the crushing topic of Pedri's latest injury. Now, this is a massive blow to the team. It's a massive blow to our midfield, to our attack. You name it, Pedri has an influence on it. And how much time is he going to miss with this latest problem? And are there concerns right now about his injuries? And the big question as well that we're going to be discussing and analysing today: who can we call upon now to try and replace him? Who should Xavi be putting his trust in these weeks to come? We are going to be discussing all of that today, so come on and let's do this. Because, as we discussed in brief this morning, the breaking news today is that Pedri has been injured in this morning's training session. It is a hamstring injury, which in itself is a concern that we're going to go on to. But Pedri now is indeed ruled out, and it looks to be a pretty serious injury as well. Because at first it was reported in the media that it may be 5 weeks of action there that Pedri would miss. Although there have been a few reports now that say it may go beyond that. It could actually be a more serious problem, and it may go beyond those original 5 weeks. Now, Pedri is guaranteed to miss Villarreal away this weekend, obviously. Then Osasuna away before the international break. Then after that, he'll miss Betis at home and also Celta Vigo at home. Now, that would be all the games that he would miss just for 1 month out, so it's going to be beyond that as well. He will also miss the first Champions League group stage game for sure. He is ruled out now of that game, and even there may be looking into October, it's going to be a question of how Pedri's recovery develops, because these hamstring injuries, they are very, very delicate. And I would firstly like to say, guys, that Pedri's injury record, it is concerning for all of us Barcelona fans, especially for such a young player. The injuries that he's already had at this stage of his young career, and also the reoccurring ones too. Muscle problems, hamstring injuries there. And I think what certainly kicked all of this off was that big first season, his breakthrough, the fact that he was overplayed by club and country in that first big season, and I just don't think he's recovered from that. He was burned out completely there. He didn't have pre-seasons, he didn't have a summer off, he was playing right the way through the whole year, and the concerns don't even end there either, because there have been quite a few suggestions throughout the day that this particular hamstring injury is very, very similar to the one that Pedri picked up back in February against Manchester United there in the Europa League. And like I say, these reoccurring injuries, they're the ones that are a real concern, because we have to be now very careful about his return date. We don't want to rush him back too soon. The last thing you want with these kinds of injuries, it's a relapse. I think we have to learn from the previous problems Pedri has had, and hopefully this time we can take better care of him, better care of his recovery, and somehow find the answers to these reoccurring problems. But indeed, guys, with Pedri then ruled out for what appears to be quite an extended period of time, it's a nightmare situation. It is not something that we would have wanted in any circumstances, but we have to find a way to try and replace him. We have to try and replace the impact that Pedri has on games. And the first thing that I would say in terms of how will this affect Xavi's planning, does this make a switch back to 3 midfielders only more likely? Because that's a topic that we have discussed quite a lot recently, whether Xavi there could move away maybe from the 4 midfield setup. And honestly, I would say Pedri's injury here does make it more likely that he reverts to 3, simply because you're removing one of your key midfield options. That gives you there less players to work with. I think it makes it more of a risk if you start then with 4 midfielders in your team. If something happens then to one of those, you don't have an awful lot of cover now waiting to come in. So I think they're reducing it again to those 3 in midfield. That would leave you with more options, especially now we've just lost one. But who is the man to come in? Who is the player there that can take on that extra responsibility, that can really make an impact in the final third? Who on earth can fill Pedri's boots? Well, Xavi has a number of options available to him. The first player that I would look at would be Ilkay Gundogan. He's somebody who just a few days ago we were talking about the fact that he's such a quality midfield player, and he's actually like having several players in one there with the skill set that he has, different kinds of qualities about his game. And I do wonder now, maybe, is there a chance to move Ilkay Gundogan further up the field into a more offensive role, closer there to the front line, and also closer, don't forget, to Robert Lewandowski. Those two, of course, have struck up a partnership earlier on in their career. careers. They know each other very, very well. Could Gundogan there play more advanced? Because don't forget, during his time at Man City, he constantly chipped in with goals. He was popping up there with really key moments in the final third, in big moments in games, and Gundogan is certainly capable there of playing a decisive pass, as we saw against Cadiz, or scoring a crucial goal, and that should certainly be kept in mind from Xavi. There's also now, of course, the re-emergence, probably I would expect, of Xavi. He's somebody we haven't seen a great deal of this season. We were looking for a way that he could be in this team, and certainly there, the absence of Pedri will give more authority, will give more game time, I'm sure, to Xavi. But what I would say about that is, they are different kinds of players, though. It's not a like-for-like change here. Xavi is not going to give you all the same things that Pedri would have. But I think what's interesting about Xavi is that, of course, he has been deployed in the front line. He has been there actually used in the front three, which would certainly tell us all that he can be effective in the final third. You know, he can make a very decisive pass. He can certainly chip in with goals as well at times. So you would wonder there whether he could replicate that kind of effectiveness from a deeper position in the field. Is he able there to affect the game in a midfield position in the same way that he has done in the front three? So that's something that Xavi will be bearing in mind. But I do have to admit right now, guys, that the one player that I'm looking at out of the corner of my eye and just thinking about right now, you know, could this be his moment? Fermin Lopez. Now, he is somebody who exploded in pre-season against Real Madrid in the Clasico there in the United States. And I have to say, since then, we haven't spoken a great deal about him. You know, he hasn't been too much in the public eye. I would say maybe even that might help him. You know, he might have gone under the radar even despite that explosive performance. And we heard earlier on this week, actually, about Fermin Lopez, that if Xavi is unable to sign another midfielder at Barca this summer, if he's not going to bring in any more players into that midfield, then he would put his faith in Fermin this season. And I've got to say, guys, I would just like to see us put more faith in him in general, you know, full stop here, because I think he's somebody who deserves more opportunities. These are the kinds of players, in my opinion, who we should put a bit more faith in. You know, go and give them a chance in the team. Go and see what they can do, because after what he did in El Clasico, surely he can play a part. Surely he has the skill set here to be effective in a Barcelona team. That explosiveness, it's unique. You know, we don't have too many midfield players there who can break the lines in the way that he was doing. And also, just remember, it wasn't just the goal. It wasn't just the spectacular long-range goal there, the power that he was able to get behind the strike, but also the assist. Just moments after his goal, he had the clarity of thought there to manoeuvre his way around several Real Madrid players, burst into space, and then just loft the ball over the top to Ferran Torres. That was wonderful. That was as good as the goal. And those are all the kinds of qualities there that we could be tapping into with Fermin Lopez, and just give him a chance, give him an opportunity. What have you got to lose? Because then I hear today in the media from Sport, actually, who've come out and said there immediately after the Pedri injury that maybe the outside pick, it could be Sergio Roberto. Maybe he could actually be chosen by Xavi to step in and fill in there for the absence of Pedri. And I just think right there, why would you not put your faith in somebody like Fermin Lopez over somebody like Sergio Roberto? You know, you've got a young player there in Fermin who has no ceiling. You know, we don't know how high he can go in the game. We don't know exactly what he's able to produce, as opposed to picking the safe option, and not really even safe, let's be honest, in Sergio Roberto, whose time at the club, you know, is running down right now. He's coming to the end of his time here. What would we really gain by choosing him? I just think right now at Barca, we've got to be a bit more brave in our decision making. We've got talented players. We've got exciting options. It's about putting our faith in them and actually giving them the chance to go out there and show what they can do. And I think that is also echoed in the transfer window. A lot of people saying now, will we sign a midfielder? Will we go out and rush into the market to try and bring somebody in with this Pedri injury? But I've got to say, guys, I personally wouldn't. You know, Pedri, he's going to come back. He's going to recover from that injury, you know, in a few weeks' time, hopefully, and he will be back in the team. So I wouldn't go out there right now and spend money unnecessarily. I wouldn't go and sell a player just so we can bring in an emergency midfielder right now. I want to see us trusting in what we have. I want to see us here tapping into the talent that we have at Barca, using what we have, trusting in what we have, and ultimately finding a way to make it work. Replacing Pedri, it's so difficult. He is such a uniquely brilliant player, and I'm gutted that we've lost him now with this serious injury problem, but let's try and find a way here. Let's work on something in midfield. Let's look at different players, look at the qualities they have, and find a way to replace or try and replace Pedri's influence and attack these coming games like we've got nothing to lose. But please, guys, what I would really like to know in the comments down below from you is what would you do? If you were sitting where Xavi is right now, looking at the injury from Pedri, looking at the options that you have at your disposal, what would you be doing in these coming games? How would your midfield look? Which player do you feel is most suited there to try and fill the big gap in our midfield left by the injured Pedri? Do let me know all of your thoughts down below, guys, exactly what you're feeling right now. But it is sad to see Pedri on the sidelines, wishing him a very, very speedy recovery. Not cutting any corners, though. Let's be careful with him and make sure that when he comes back, he is 100% recovered. I will see you guys, of course, soon with lots more videos to come. Thank you indeed for joining me here today. But until next time, guys, as always, Visca El Barça.